Hey y'all, I am going to try something out a little bit different this week. Last week, I recorded something. It ended up being about a 45-minute video, and there was a lot of sitting down, trying to think of a topic, trying to piece it together, almost improvise it as I went along. No plan, no direction, and winging it and hoping for the best. At least 25 minutes of that was probably dead time trying to figure out the next words. Then I was thinking about how much time it's going to take to edit, how much time it's going to take to try and piece together the string of thought in order to make it something that not only I, but other people could actually follow through. And the very first video I did, I manually added subtext. So I know there's the default features with YouTube with respect to learning it from scratch. I did that. Now I apologize right now if it's dark. I'm here, if you can see me, just driving this time. There was big traffic, and I think this is something that's just kind of coming to me at the time. So the audio might be still workable, but not sure about the visual. But I think capturing this moment would probably be better suited than trying to recreate it at another point. Part of what I wanted to do with all these talks is be a little bit more natural and not seem so scripted. If we think about times being scripted, if it's extremely scripted, rehearsed, there lacks a natural fluidity. And with that, losing the connection with people. I can't think of how many times within the past week there's been so many different little lessons that I thought I wanted to bring a topic to each individual one and have thoughts on Thursdays. A lot of time it's me trying to sit and think about what might want to imprint or how I might want to come across. More so not the fluidity of being comfortable in the camera. This past weekend, I've come from a wedding. I've come from spiritual talks. I've come from different musical experiences, listening to albums I haven't heard, picking up instruments after a long time, having conversations with people, and a lot of different things come out of all those conversations / reflection / time to just absorb myself with whether spirituality or craft and music or so on. The more I would do this, the more I would hope it would come across that there would be a train of thought / a kind of progression. Want to tie that in back to what I'm thinking about constantly when it comes to the craft and developing. So if I want to find another way to tie underdog to a lot of what I do, there's a work ethic, but the ability to consistently go at it while being receptive enough to seize on any opportunities or to make those opportunities and capitalize on them is another element that may not be touched upon so much as the hustle culture these days. I can't underestimate being visible enough and putting yourself in the right place or in any place as much as possible. Now, you can be a genius in the craft, but if nobody knows anything about you and you're living under a rock, in a sense, it can almost be like stroking your own ego. You continue to do something, it is for beginning and ending for your own sake, if that's the case. I don't think that is a great thing for greater man, if that's the limitation of a gift that you have. I also want to touch upon how gifts come in different shapes and sizes according to one person to the next. A lot of times we may not generally understand for our own exactly what's going on. That's why therapists are a crucial part in this day and age, especially too, because there's a sense of self-reflection that kind of gets, I don't know if I want to say hindered, or it's a little bit mute, or there's a difficulty in real, honest transparency. Again, whether there's a reason that it is avoided and there's escapism, or there's something that is specifically difficult with that relative to the eyes looking outwards and noticing things external to yourself. Why am I mentioning that? The constant development of different things is, in one sense, the hustle culture. But in another sense, it's in itself would benefit from a kind of development, a strategic development, and a plan in doing so. What I'm getting at is this. At times, we could be so closed off in our perspective, even to seeing any peripherals, that we may not know the individuality or the uniqueness, the gift, or the path best suited for the individual to get to the next level. I stressed upon clarity, but in variety of different forms of experience, it can translate into your day-to-day and your goals. As long as I can remember wanting to do music, any related music, anything that's, I knew that exactly the shape and form. I started off wanting to do a holistic approach to music and wanted to tie in health, like mental health. I wanted to tie in your physical health, your well-being. Wanted to tie in performance, acoustics. I wanted to try in composition. I wanted to be a master at each individual thing so that the work that I would create would be the penultimate best creations for the benefit of man. That was my thing that I was set out to, but it seemed like I might have talked myself out due to the complexity with the amount of different disciplines and the amount of lifetimes people can devote into one of those slivers and how to fuse them all together, and being a little bit more clear on what the ultimate goal would look like. And I started off wanting to be a performer. I've had years on instruments and I started off fairly young. Clarity could be hammering on a certain point, but the path that we think we are clear on may not be how it becomes to fruition. It might just be a stepping stone into something different, but at least it kind of gets you along a path. Not necessarily, again, the path all the time. It's not always the case. So I started training with a personal trainer back in September. We were talking just about 10 months, maybe minus a few days. I have a great trainer, training twice a week with my trainer, but there were innumerable benefits since that point in time, starting off with energy level, not feeling energized enough for sufficient day-to-day function, right? Let's put it very, very briefly. Neurological, physical, there were quite a few things, and I didn't find it easy. I put myself out there to commit. So I had my deep down reasons to do something. It didn't seem feasible. I thought I'd just swallow the pill and go for it because I don't know if it was a FOMO, fear of missing out. Thought if the benefits are what I hope they are, and optimistically looking at it, then it would outweigh any of the sacrifice or difficulties through that time, i.e. financial, for the benefits that would come. And if I'm playing the longer game, the more it would be worth it to do what I did at the time, take the training. So I had my reasons. I've had a diagnosis to be on cholesterol pills the rest of my life, etc., etc., etc. All that's to say, there's a goal of I wanted to just better the health. I didn't care about how it would look physically with the aesthetics. I didn't care about the numbers I would be putting on the bar. I just wanted to better my health. And in the avenue of bettering the health and maybe setting some other objectives, cardiovascular health, mental clarity, resilience, inner confidence of being able to look back at my day more often than not, because I'm training most days of the week, and just feel like I'm confident with I've accomplished something early in the day. That is not the easiest thing. I push myself with after the workout is done, I'm sitting on the treadmill for 20 minutes. A few things just keep on adding up. And because something is so transformative and I am vigilant day in and day out, even outside of the gym, that my actions work cohesively with the goal of bettering my health at the gym. And it's encapsulating other things, again, with my time outside the gym. When I look at the nutrition, if I'm spending time on YouTube, I'm finding more and more these days it's on health related stuff that I'm looking up. I've realized that what I set out with just bettering my health has come to an interesting point where I'm speaking to people and it's something they're noticing, not necessarily how I look, but how I'm speaking or what's being said. Once a workout comes, I feel that high, that calmness after beating myself up, pushing myself to lift. There's a kind of inner stillness at that point. But I might run into people that aren't at the gym or aren't exercising or aren't eating properly and wish to do this, wish to do that. And I would feel compelled to not necessarily go on and on about my story, but because of having that relevant experience in a recent timeline and feeling that I'm able to meet them where they are with what difficulties they have in order to make the steps to commit and to not even just take it as a huge chunk right away of commit, but to take some first steps, no matter how small it is. I would use a goal and an effect of pursuing that goal. And that tangent could lead to a deep-rooted tree. Some people would say it is motivating what you're saying. Maybe it causes them to think. Maybe it causes them to realize certain things. Or maybe it's a practicality that's you almost shatter their hindrances or obstacles. Again, because I might not be them. So it is easier that way. But choosing how to funnel, how I want to approach what I'm going to say, and with each individual person, what's maybe most beneficial and a beneficial way to impact and of like a positive influence, hitting the nerve or hitting the nail right on the head and not dancing around, especially when it comes to something like health. There's compassion. And again, this is not coming from a professional, but there's compassion in certain cases. Maybe it's people I've established a relation with and I can be a little more blunt or straightforward. But I think if there's a little too much slack, that might not be enough to cause action, I think, in general. Anyways, with these talks I've been having here, reflections, I feel like there's something of value to say or to show or illustrate. If it's not in words, it's something musically. That's where composing and painting that picture comes into play. I would always look at avenues like music as, they say there's therapy, but it's also discovery, the way I see it as well. So if you're so excited and so passionate about something, it shows and it can be motivating for others. So the challenge would be, if you're an underdog and if you're fighting hard for something, what are you fighting for comes to the clarity point. But how are you conducting yourself through it all? Is it begrudgingly? Is it with every fiber in your being, you're passionate about it? Because I can say I know it, but do you have, like a development plan, kind of some things along the way, making sure you're progressing, making sure you're incorporating different aspects of what you need to make it feel like it's being nurtured, whether it's things like health, whether it's things like marketing and being social. It can seem overwhelming, and that's the point I hit on last time. But I would challenge and say, if you have clarity, then you can conduct yourself in a way where each step along the way has a purpose. One thing could be just to tie it back to the goal and say, I am doing deadlifts again because it's going to relate to a goal. You could say that. We could tie into the moment itself and enjoy, the process, not the end result. I would dive in one step deeper. It's great to enjoy the current because we stress on how important the current is. The present is a gift. How you do anything is how you do everything. If I'm that excited to do same lifting routine that I might have done countless times at this point, then if it's a step needed, I don't think about that step. I don't think about, I got to do this thing again. I've done it before. I'm going to skip it. And that snowball turning into an avalanche. I focused on something so significant to me that I became passionate about it. And through that passion, it impacts others in a very real way. Some people were thinking I could be a motivational speaker, helping practicality when it comes to people trying to figure things out in their own lives, because they've seen that exemplified when I speak about health, nutrition, exercising, so on. As somebody not formally certified or trained on this is information I have from my trainer that I regurgitated / most likely butchered or dumbed down in a way that I feel that I can easily retain it and apply to my own life. Thus, if I'm seeing the benefits of that, then you're living and walking proof, because the actions have been repeated. You've been very consistent. You're seeing it through, and other people see it over time. You can work and work and work, and then probably going to have to work and work and more. Mentorship is so incredibly valuable for saving time, headache. Though it may seem heavy loaded up front, it does pay off. I would carry that on. Doing something that impact, even if it's a small, little, very personal thing for you, that has even personally fueled me through innumerable, very slim, dark, grim sliver of hope times. Don't take that for granted, because that's a gift, and gifts can spoil. Gifts can rot, gifts can diminish. If not tended for, they seem insignificant in the long term. Might be forgotten. Better being used than being lost and thrown out and disregarded. That tiny little thing can have the effect of moving mountains. Who knows how big? Sky's the limit. It may be easier said than done to be revitalized and inspired and keeping that flame burning fiercely. If somebody was saying passion in the way I'm translating it can be very motivating for others, and I'm finding that through health, meanwhile, I would want to funnel it how I've set forth musically, what I've invested in with my time and money and energy. It would make sense. That is the avenue that may be visible for other people to make that comment on. Yet, this is what's coming forth. Keep coming back also to how action is really the key to it all. But perfect practice makes perfect, what Lombardi said. So I would also challenge the routine that's set. I would call it again like a development plan. Even within it, is that curated in a sense to actually be progressing? The gym may be a very different example because yes, there is an art when you are experienced enough. Thanks again to my trainer mentioning there's a specific science perspective that you can take. But with enough experience, there's an art to gauging certain things day by day, whether it means you can modify something, veer it off track to serve the greater goal. If I just sat down and practiced scales, ascending, descending, these same scales, these same position, these same notes per string, and starting on the same degree, ending on the same degree, maybe no triads, maybe no arpeggios. Could I get better? Yes. Could I lend myself to where my goals ultimately want to be? I think the goal setting and the clarity, I would emphasize even more how important that is. Started off in a certain way, fairly strong, I thought, kind of focused on where I wanted this direction to go. And as I started talking, I realized I veered off again. So this is something I think I made a note on that I wanted to talk about. The lived experiences, I always would try and sit back a little bit and observe. And then from my observations and some theory or so I test out, that's how I would review, analyze, observe, theorize. I think I would say that it is very iterative of a process. The clarity can set you going. The deep purpose is the light in the dark times. But the refinement is a constant, whether you make systems to be more procedural and efficient, or if that's the end all and be all with the technical side of things, that in itself, I'm becoming more and more aware of these days, has its own limitations. Yes, there was a period of time where I just sat and read books. And those books, vast majority of them were self-help books. And topics like this would come up. And it's practice. And if I were to overarchingly oversimplifying these books, there are many different ways they illustrate certain points, and each of them have potentially a certain crowd, or after a certain amount of times, it would stick. The goal is action ultimately. The safekeeping of sitting and technical exercises, technical practices, it's Basically, it's as if I talk about how good broccoli is to eat, but never actually eating it and getting the benefits of it. There's too much that can be missed if you're too rigid in a path. If you're inflexible, I don't believe that's a good thing. If I'm unwilling to adapt for a longer period of time rather than the inflexibility of one day to the next, I also think you're doing yourself a disservice. The goal is to be better. The goal of my health was to get better. The goal of our craft, the goal of music, is the pursuit of the artistry and being that vessel for the art. I'm being the best vessel for health. And it shows in different avenues. Clarity in art can be hard to distinctly define. I think it might be fairly objective unless you're zooming in or out on a lens. I think I zoomed in a micro sense last time for the art being what am I clear on for the art. But I think zooming out also has its benefits on who you are going to be throughout the process, which is also extremely beneficial because as a musician, as an artist, head to toe, whether you're talking the physicality or mentality or the spirituality or the heart, that has to all be in line so that there's no resistance for the path to flow. The more we do this, the easier it becomes. Same it was with health. Same, certain things become clear. Same will be for everything else. Of course, have faith, but it becomes easier once you're actually doing it and you have that connection. So you can be clear, actionable, progress, planning, steps, but cultivating the person so it becomes second nature to do. I like that ending point. Y'all are amazing. Keep climbing, keep fighting. We've got it. We're all in this together. Take care.